You're listening to episode 9 of In Film We Trust. I'm Liam.
I'm Wayne.
A weekly podcast where we discuss, dissect, and deep dive all things film, from the obscure to the mainstream.
And now, on with the show.
In Richard Franklin's 1981 Aussie film Roadgames, a film that borrows heavily from Alfred Hitchcock, we follow Patrick Quid, a long-haul trucker who, whilst pulling into a motel for the night, gets himself caught up in a cat-and-mouse game with a mysterious man in a green van, a man he comes to suspect as being responsible for the deaths of numerous women. Funnily enough, for a genre that came to importance in the 70s, the term wasn't actually coined until Tarantino, of all people, said Ozploitation. And that was shortened by Mark Hartley, who was the director of Not Quite Hollywood, The Wild Untold Story, and he shortened it to Ozploitation.
Yeah, I'll be honest, obviously the term exploitation we're all very familiar with, but I'd never really heard the term Ozploitation used that much. I would just have said Australian exploitation. I've never thought of even shortening it to that.
Which is a strange thing, because all these different countries, whether it's America or that, it's almost cut into subgenres. You have sexploitation, then you have the cheap horror films. Yet in Australia, everything is termed Ozploitation.
It's under like an umbrella term.
Yeah,
basically.
whether it's the sexploitation films, the action films, the horror, etc., isn't it?
Is it because you think Australia just doesn't turn out as many mainstream movies as the like of America does?
Well, prior to 1970, Australia was only averaging about 20 films per year. 20 films, just.
Very little. But you have to think, in the history of Australian cinema, 1906, The Story of the Kelly Gang, was the first ever feature film. It was about 60 minutes, but of course a lot of it's been lost. And I think only 17 minutes remain, which you can watch fully on YouTube.
What kind of film was that, Wayne?
It was a bushranger film, because obviously back at the time, it's about the Kelly Gang. That was a very big genre at the time, like outlaws, people fighting in the bush.
So similar to the Ozploitation film Mad Dog Morgan with Dennis Hopper.
Very similar. Of course, very primitive filming techniques, but very important for the time, because Australia, around the kind of First World War, just before First World War, they were making about 90 films a year.
90 films?
But 90 films, but as time went on, there was a massive bust, because they've had a lot of like peaks and ditches in Australian cinema history.
In the 1970s, Australia had a film boom.
It did, because there was two of the Aussie Prime Ministers, Gorton and Whitlam, who came very close to each other. They put a lot of funding back into arts and film, which led to this renaissance of Aussie movies.
Well, they done it craftily. They done tax cuts. So people were funding these cheap films for a profit, because them putting their money into these films, by very doing that, they were getting tax cuts.
Yeah, was Australia just a cheaper place to film? Because I know if you film in somewhere like Los Angeles, it'll cost a lot. That's why I hear Breaking Bad was filmed in New Mexico, because it was a lot cheaper there to film it.
Well, I wonder that as well, because if you're in the outback, you can do it a very guerrilla style. There's a good chance you're never going to be noticed, isn't there?
You're not going to need permits, because there's a lot of outback in Australia, so you could film anything you wanted there.
As you would know, because you've been to Australia?
Yeah, I was 2 years in Australia, which is why, again, talking about anything Aussie, I really enjoy, because a lot of it does remind me of being back there.
I was just trying that way, and I was thinking, how can we get Wayne's experience in Australia? We got it with Upgrade, and there's possibly another film. We got it again, so we're good.
Yeah, we're on an Aussie roll here.
An Aussie roll. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Upgrade, is that Ozploitation? I know technically you could end it in the 80s, couldn't you?
Cyberpunk exploitation.
Plunk's a different thing.
Yes, plunk is a different thing. But when we talk about this time, kind of the 70s, moving on there, Australia was actually described as being one of the most repressive countries on earth. Like, erotic novels were banned, a lot of movies were banned, lots of comics were banned as well. But then Australia, almost overnight, became this very liberal country, and that helped with this new wave of Australian films.
Was there a mass liberalisation?
There must have been. No Mary Whitehouses over there.
Well, was it 70? It was either 70 or 71 where Australia introduced the R rating.
Yeah, I think it was 71.
So you got these slew of sexploitation films, what would cater to this R rating, because they knew, all right, this is a new thing, isn't it? Let's cater to that market, because people will be willing to go see this.
So basically, they brought in this R rating, and everybody kind of jumped on it as their chance to make these films. Like when we did Censor, like when they had the video nasty thing, when they found this loophole, suddenly everybody made these kind of films, and this is basically what the Australians were doing.
Interestingly, I think it was Mark Kermode I was once listening to, and this was a while, so I'm paraphrasing, and he said, for all these artistic directors, whether they be Australian or whoever, like Baz Luhrmann, you need an exploitation market for people to develop their skills when they're new and bring in the audience.
Yeah, because nobody starts off on these
No.
big budget pictures. You have to start somewhere like James Cameron himself started on, like, was it like Piranha 3D or Piranha 2 or something like that? So you've got to start somewhere. You have to hone your craft at some place.
And it's very effective, because I don't know about you, but I'd rather watch this film than any Baz Luhrmann film.
Definitely, yeah. Like I'm not a Baz Luhrmann fan at all. I don't think I've really liked any of his films, to be honest.
Don't hold back, Wayne.
No, but again, like,
Do we have to hire security for Baz Luhrmann here?
No. It's not that. Great Gatsby. That was one of his films, wasn't it?
I actually didn't mind Great Gatsby.
Yes, I only seen bits of it, but when you had this new wave, which led to Ozploitation, what you had is you had filmmakers in Australia that were making movies that kind of borrowed from American horror and exploitation. They were making these kind of films because this would appeal to, like, international markets.
Yeah, but it would exploit Australian stereotypes and cultural norms for Australia, wouldn't it? Which all kind of exploitation does, because you get in America, obviously, the blaxploitation, which would kind of exploit and kind of examine the seedier aspects of black culture. And this, you could say, you've got your biker films, your horror films, what kind of the seedier side of Australian life.
They almost always took a kind of negative, they shone like a negative light on it. And yeah, with Ozploitation films, there's very classic elements. There's the rough terrain, the outback life, especially hostile locals, hostile and untrusting locals. Because, like I say, I lived in Australia. The majority,
you got it in again.
Yeah, the majority of Australians, they're just lovely, very hospitable people. But if the only thing you knew about Australia was what you see in these films, you'd imagine everybody was a psychopath there.
The psychos left when you left, Wayne.
They came with me. Yeah.
Do you think, is there a Britsploitation? Have you heard of Britsploitation?
No.
There must be.
Well, we do have those kind of great
Yeah,
films.
we
like,
have them. But
you mean like your Get Carter kind of films?
Yeah, but was it ever termed Britsploitation?
I've never heard. It probably does exist. Like I say, I'd never heard of Ozploitation, but Britsploitation probably does exist. Again, this would be your gangsters, people running like CD pubs and brothels and stuff like that.
Yeah, almost like the Cray twins, etc.
Yeah, the kind of back alley kind of.
I think we've got an idea here, Wayne.
Yes, I think this will be our next.
We have to run with this.
This will be our own picture, but
so notable directors of this genre. Obviously, we've got the Roadgames director Richard Franklin. He's he's the Hitchcock, isn't he?
He was kind of a protege, because I believe he was with Hitchcock when Hitchcock made Topaz.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, and obviously, observing Hitchcock, there's not many people, if you're going to make a horror film, there's not many people better to learn from than Hitch.
And Richard Franklin is... Oh, no, sorry. Brian Trenchard Smith is Tarantino's favourite director of Ozploitation.
Yeah, is he?
But this is his favourite film. Roadgames is his favourite film of Ozploitation. But I'm sure Brian Trenchard Smith was the favourite director of Tarantino.
Oh, okay. Then
who is a huge Ozploitation fan.
Yeah, because, again, we were saying about getting your start in Ozploitation films. Two of the biggest names I came across were Peter Weir and George Miller. So they started off in these kind of low-budget things.
George Miller being the director of the Mad Max films.
And Peter Weir, who directed Picnic at Hanging Rock. That was one of his big Aussie
movies. Is that
movies.
an Ozploitation film?
I think it kind of is. It's more like a mystery. It's maybe more like almost like Australian Giallo kind of film.
Oh, interesting.
But obviously he would go on to direct things like The Truman Show.
Well, George Miller would do Babe.
Babe and Happy Feet.
Meh, let's not mention that.
Pretty far away from where he started, but
and Nicole Kidman, her second film, BMX Bandits.
Only her second film.
I think it was her second film. It was done in the same year as her first film.
Again, another big actor, like people like again Hugh Jackman, because obviously he would have had to start small, and he's just blown up to be a big star now.
Which is isn't it such a great way to hone your craft? Whether you're a director or an actor, you get to work on this type of material.
You mean kind of low risk kind of material, because you're not going to lose a lot if the movie doesn't do well, because they're low budgeted films.
But for all the kind of low budget we speak about, there's also Walkabout. Did that not have Jenny Agutter in?
Jenny Agutter. Yeah, I think she was in that.
Yeah, and that was directed by Nick Rogue, who done the tremendous film Performance with Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger, yeah. So you have these, like I say, you have these directors who have gone on to big success, but started honing their craft in this genre, which I think, like I say, Ozploitation is a very kind of under-talked about genre.
Especially until the documentary, Not Quite Hollywood.
That was 2008, wasn't
2008,
it? Which was, I think, where Tarantino did come out and he said, he actually coined the term exploitation, like you say.
Ozploitation,
And he revealed that Roadgames is his favourite, was it his favourite Australian movie or just favourite Ozploitation?
I don't know, because you don't know with Tarantino, because he's such a genre fan. So, potentially, because it's his favourite Ozploitation film is potentially his favourite Australian film.
Yeah, I think before seeing Roadgames, for me, the most notable Ozploitation film I'd seen would have been Wake in Fright.
Mad Max.
From 90, or maybe Mad Maxwell, but from 1971, Wake in Fright. We spoke about the characteristics of Ozploitation with the locals and the rough terrain. That's very much epitomised in Wake in Fright. It's a mad film.
Is Donald Pleasance in that?
Donald Pleasance is in that.
He is in that.
Yeah, he plays a guy called Doc, who I think is like either drunk or drugged out of his mind most of the time.
Is he a lot different to Sam Loomis in Halloween?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's a lot more kind of cut loose in that film. But Wake in Fright is a fantastic film. Very controversial because it featured, I believe, live shots of kangaroo hunting.
Oh, really?
But again, this is 1971, so this is before no animals were harmed in the making of this
so
film.
So is it Australia's cannibal holocaust?
It basically is, yeah. Most of it, there's just guys drunk out in the middle of the outback just going insane. But like I say, it epitomised that Ozploitation feel.
I think everybody should go see some Ozploitation.
I think they should. And if I was going to recommend a series of Ozploitation films, one of which would be Roadgames.
Or is that Roadgames, Wayne?
Sorry, Roadgames. Roadgames, not to be confused with Roadgames, which is a 2015 film, unrelated to this, but was inspired by it.
Was it inspired by it? Was it?
It was. It's about was it French hitchhikers? I think it was something like that.
Because even if you go on Wikipedia, this is like, it says Roadgames. Stylized Roadgames.
It's hard to find because it's stylized as two words, but it's written as one.
So this film is obviously Richard Franklin's 1981 Roadgames. We're going whichever way you want to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Richard Franklin's Roadgames, written by Everett DeRoche. Am I saying that right?
Everett DeRoche, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, and he also wrote Patrick for Richard Franklin, Long Weekend, and Roadgames. He's kind of the Nicholas St. John to Abel Ferrara.
Yeah, at this point, both of them had a pretty established career in not just Australian cinema, because Richard Franklin also directed Psycho 2. So, of course, following up one of Hitchcock's best films.
He's a very Hitchcockian director. I wonder if that's why he was chosen to do Psycho 2. I'm assuming it was.
Well, this plays right into it. What I heard is when DeRoche was going to write the script, Franklin gave him basically the script of Rear Window and said, I want it to be like this, but with moving vehicles. And he wrote a first draft in 8 days in a hotel room, I think.
Well, did you notice in this film, a lot of the plot points, which we'll get to later, are... They're Rear Window in a truck, aren't they?
It does. It parallels Rear Window up to in a lot of plot beats, even towards the end. It's kind of following a very similar structure. But that's no problem for me. Rear Window might be my favourite Hitchcock film. So
I love Rear Window.
I love Rear Window. Absolutely fantastic film. I've got no problem with that at all. Also, the score done by, I was calling him not Brian May, because Brian May comes up like, oh, what, Brian May? Oh, no, it's an Australian composer.
Yeah, at first I was thinking, oh, Brian May done this.
I was sitting thinking, where's the guitar solos? But yeah, it's not him.
Hey, but he still has pedigree. He done the Mad Max soundtracks as well.
He did the Mad Max soundtracks as well, yeah.
And this film at the time was made for 1.75 million Australian dollars, which was the highest budget Australian film up to that date.
Which is quite funny, because when you think of exploitation films, you think of low budget, but this was the most expensive film in the country at the time.
So can you fill us in with more of your Australian knowledge? So what's the US dollar to Australian dollar kind of conversion? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but from pounds to dollars, because I think it's about, at the time I went about 10 years, I was there 10 years ago. The pound was about, get you $1.6.
Right.
So it's maybe from us to Australian dollars, American dollars, maybe kind of similar.
Yeah, I'd say it's similar.
But again, you're working early 80s, you're working with pretty low budget, 1.75, most expensive at the time, but it's still not a lot of money.
Interestingly as well, Sean Connery was... They wrote this with Sean Connery to be the lead.
Yeah. But let's be honest, see if you watch Sean Connery in this film, that's 1.75 million gone, because he'd done Bond at the time. He would be way too expensive.
Yeah, you're blowing the budget from the go, aren't you?
Yeah, also, this is no shade on Sean Connery. Love Sean Connery to death. I think it would have been too distracting having him in this film.
The thing is, you say that, right? When I read it, I was thinking, oh, that'd be quite interesting. But here's the thing, and we'll get to it later. Stacy Keach is so great as the lead character.
He's fantastic, isn't he?
He is a great lead character. You end up thinking, oh no, I'd rather have Stacy Keach now than Sean Connery.
Yeah, by the time the film was over, I thought, I'm glad they went with this. He actually learned to drive I think it was a 16 gear.
16 gear he learned to drive.
For this film. No, Stacy Keach was fantastic. I don't know about you, I've not seen him in much. I mostly know him he was the warden in Prison Break.
Yeah, he's one of them interesting guys. You get these guys, whether it's like Steve Buscemi, actors of these ilk, and they'll pop up, especially in films of the past, strong character actors who aren't necessarily household names. I mean, everybody kind of knows Stacy Keach, but you're not going to really digress into his whole filmography unless you're like a super fan.
He's the kind of person where you see him on screen, you thought, oh, that guy, I know him, I just don't know his name.
He's got a striking image.
He does have a very distinctive look, very distinctive voice as well.
And he plays the part of a trucker so well. He's got that kind of broad, big build, doesn't he?
Yeah, he very much looks the part, and I think there was a lot of nuance in his character. Again, we'll get to it, but there's a lot of... His character was given a lot more complexity. He could just have been written as a very one-dimensional truck driver. For example, Night of the Living Dead, how the lead character was originally written as an uncouth truck driver, but when the actor came on, they gave him a lot more nuance. I feel like that's what they did here.
And Lisa Pierce was cast as the female lead.
Originally.
Supposed to be the Jamie Lee Curtis character, because the American distributors insisted on an American in the film, an American female lead.
I suppose so. Like, do you think they had the two Americans in the lead to give it that kind of American feel? Because from what I hear, Jamie Lee Curtis said, ended up being cast in the film, there was a lot of hostility. There
was a lot of tension, wasn't there? Because they thought that the Americans were coming and taking their jobs, in a sense.
Curtis actually said she had Aussies coming up to her saying, how does it feel to be taking jobs away from Australians?
Yeah.
That is uncomfortable. She could have been in her own real-life Ozploitation film.
Unfortunately, Jamie Lee Curtis isn't in this the most, is she? She's pivotal, but she's not in the most. No. And that was a regret of Richard Franklin. He wished he placed her more in the film.
It was, but as we'll get on to later, I think it was part of the subversion of this film.
Yeah, I think she's tremendous in it. They're both good in it. She looks really young, isn't she? Because what was Halloween? 78, wasn't it? So this is only 3 years after Halloween 1.
Because if you think, what she's done so far is she done Halloween, The Fog, Prom Night, Terror Train. So Jamie Lee Curtis was the firm queen of Scream Queen at this point.
And she's found herself in another thriller, but a thriller that actually goes against your expectations of what this film is going to be, isn't it?
That's what I thought, because when I was reading about this film, it was pointed out a lot of times, and I noticed this, there's a lot of subversions to the kind of classic exploitation genre.
Did you expect the humour? I never expected the humour of this film.
No, mostly from Stacy Keach's way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't actually. It is funny how the film is punctuated by these kind of funny little jokes. You'll get kind of a brutal, like kind of a dark scene, and then it'll go back to Stacy Keach and you'll get kind of some of his patter.
As we mentioned with Tarantino previously, he actually stated, Tarantino, he said, you could remake this film again and you could follow the script word by word and it would still play tremendous. That's a paraphrase. And it is true. This script is so strong. The little quips, the jokes, etc. They all play into the character, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's all very well done. It's
never cheap.
It's not a wordy script either.
Well, because obviously this guy's... He's a long-haul trucker, so he's on his own a lot. So he's developed this rapport where he's talking to himself, which will play a part in the story.
Yeah, he's developed a rapport with himself, basically.
And Boswell the dog.
Boswell the dog guy, because it's set basically when it's filmed Australia in the early 80s, and you've got a truck driver called Patrick Quid. Why do you think they called him that? Because he even points out at one point in the film, Quid, like pound sterling. He even points that out. I wonder why they chose that name for him.
I don't know, because I don't know, Wayne.
Oh.
It's an interesting thing. Maybe it's just for that joke. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. But like I say, long distance truck driver in Australia, that's a hell of a country to do that.
Because we even opened on a motel. Because he's parking in for the night, isn't he?
But what's the very first shot of the film? A bunch of bins.
A bunch of bins.
Do you think that was deliberate with the kind of exploitation trashy
Well, it's
feel?
foreboding because that comes important when there's a scene when a certain somebody may be looking out of a window.
Possibly, yeah. It's very important to the film. So, but I like that as the first shot. It kind of, like I say, set it up to what's going to happen later on.
But when he's speaking to his dog, and there's a girl a woman who's going into the motel, and this is kind of like to give you an idea of the little quips or the witticisms Patrick Quid will say. He says, "If you're lucky, you might even get a disco dolly for dessert."
Yeah, because like I say, he pulls up beside this motel, which he's hoping to stay at. But like he sleeps in his truck quite often, and he says, even he's saying to Boswell, his dog, not his dog, his dingo.
His dingo.
Because he has a dingo with him. He explains at one point that it's better than a dog. He says it doesn't bark.
And it's cleaner, they're cleaner and more intelligent.
Yeah.
Do you think he's talking about himself as well?
Possibly.
Because there's kind of moments where because he spouts a lot of poetry throughout this film, doesn't he?
His dog is almost an avatar because his dog is set up as someone he can have a conversation with.
Do you think that's kind of a plot device so it's not just one man in a truck for most of the point?
To keep it going, the other thing I thought is if you're doing this kind of long distance lorry driving, it's going to get boring. Because Australia has a lot of long kind of straight roads, so you're going to be doing that kind of thing. I don't know about you, I talk to myself all the time.
I've noticed.
Yeah, so on those long distance, again, like you say, it's interesting for the film. You get a look into his personality, his characteristics, but it's also realistic because that's what I can see people doing on those long drives.
And it releases the tension because it allows the central character to make these humorous quips.
Yeah, and it's a good way for him to explain what he's thinking without it just seeming kind of unnecessarily expository.
Like he's explaining just for the audience.
Yeah, it's like he's stream of consciousing.
Right, so we have this girl at the motel, and she's booking in with a man in a green van. I don't think he ever has a name, does he? This mysterious man in a green van.
No, he doesn't. In fact, something else. This guy never talks either.
Which is great.
Never
I
says
like
a single word.
that.
It's a lot of it's done through his performance. He's kind of the shaggy look. He's got long hair and a beard as
and they
well.
never demystify him. I like that.
Yeah, do you know who he's played by?
Who is that?
Grant Page, who is the
Grant Page?
stunt coordinator for Mad Max, as well as a few other Ozploitation films.
He looks quite gruff.
He does look rough, yeah.
I'll give him that.
Yeah, he does look like that rough outback type.
So, the first kill, Wayne. Isn't this great setup? She is sitting on a bed, naked. You never see anything, because this isn't a salacious film.
No, it's not.
But she's covered by an acoustic guitar, and she's playing along. It's lit very well, and then you get a close-up, them gloves. Always gloves, Wayne, in films.
Always gloves. Again, like when we did Barbarian, it's the black gloves. Here, they're kind of white netted gloves.
What do you think that is? Is that like a dehumanizing thing? Because there's no flesh. Here's gloves committing it.
Well, it's like in this murder, there is no humanity, there's no person, there's just the method.
Possibly. And he's got this string. It's a guitar string. It is a guitar string. And he brings it over her face. And it's done in a very
slow pan shot across her face.
And you get a good shot of her eyes, don't you? And the guitar string comes down, and then he chokes her.
Interestingly, one thing I think this film did very well, same as what the original Chainsaw Massacre did, this is not a graphic film at all. I don't even think you see any of the kills.
Is there even any blood?
There's pretty much no blood. Well, there's bits on like the killer's face at points, but it's very encouraging you to use your imagination in this film. Also, something I liked about this scene is, you notice when he stepped out the bathroom, it's all bright behind him. It's almost like a kind of light of God thing as he's turning up.
I think it's a throwback to those 50s Hitchcock films where it's setting you up in your imagination to be extremely graphic. Even Psycho. There's not much in Psycho, but it's graphic.
Barely anything at all. Even that famous shower scene, you don't
or Rear Window.
Exactly, you don't see very much at all.
Though, have you ever saw Hitchcock's Frenzy?
I've not seen Frenzy, no.
That's quite graphic.
Is that quite
compared to Hitchcock's other films? I'm not saying this is Friday the 13th.
No.
But, I mean, it's somewhat graphic.
No, but this film has a lot of restraint in terms of the kills, because it's not about the kills themselves, it's about the killer himself.
What did you find of the pervasive score? There's a lot, because the central character here, Stacy Keach, Quid, he is always with a harmonica, and that kind of feeds into the soundtrack of this film.
Because he actually plays along to Mozart at one point, doesn't he?
Yeah, did you think it went well with this film?
I've kind of mixed things with the score. There's a lot of scenes which we'll get to where the score was fantastic because it's eerie and it's simplistic and you can feel the hair standing in the background. But there's some scenes where there's like a dun 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 dun. A lot of the time, it made me feel like a military movie where you see people marching. Like, even in some kind of tense scenes, I'm like, oh, did they put the wrong music in?
It kind of made you feel like you're on an adventure yarn.
It's a weird kind of... yeah.
My idea was, it's like a cross between John Williams and Bernard Herrmann.
Yeah, that's a very
You have
good
that almost Spielbergian...
Yeah.
Where, in Spielberg films, the score, apart from Jaws, of course, even in the tense scenes, it's never... What would you say? It's never over the top in the thrills. It's always adventurous, isn't it?
Well, that whimsical John Williams score is... he's a fantastic composer, but like you say, with this film is like the Jaws thing. It's a very eerie, very simplistic score.
So after she's offed, should we say, to be quite blunt, we awaken in the morning, and he's
very early in the morning, but
5 a.m.
5 a.m.
It makes a point of saying 5 a.m. And do you know why it makes a point of saying 5 a.m.?
Why is that?
Well, the bin men, Wayne. The bin men. That's a plot. The actual plot point is the bin men.
Do Aussie bin men come at 5 in the morning? That's brutal.
Christ, that's even far ahead for these days.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty brutal, but
Have we gone backwards, Wayne?
Oh, they must have done, yeah. But he looks out his window and, like I say, the bin men are coming along the road. And this is where he notices his dog runs off.
Dingo?
dingo. Sorry. His dingo Boswell runs off and he's sniffing at one of the bins. Straight away, I knew what the deal was there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you see in the motel room, the killer is kind of, he's looking out, he's peeking out, you see his glove on the window, and he's kind of in shadow, which I like. I like how it plays with the shadows.
You barely see
you barely see his face, but you see his glove, the
Yeah.
dark glove against the white blind, isn't it?
White one, yeah. Again, it's the kind of rear windowy thing of observation, looking out.
And then we cut to them credits of them loading the meat up.
Yeah, I like that because the title hasn't appeared yet, and then suddenly with the thing with the meat, because he's transporting, it's pigs, because there's a strike in Western Australia.
Porkers.
Yep, porkers, yeah, so he has to transport porkers, and then, yeah, Roadgames comes across the pork.
Road games? Road games.
Roadgames, yeah. So he's...
Choose your own.
Yeah, so this is where, like I say, he's going to set out...
This is a great scene on the motorway, Wayne. This is a great scene.
When he's discussing all the people around him.
You are setting all the periphery characters who will come into play in this film.
There were times in this film where I was like, oh, he's from earlier, because I remember from Quid's description of them.
And he's spouting his poetry. He says, with full devout courage, and he says, courage, of sundry folk by adventures fall, and fellowship and pilgrims were they all. And you when he's saying this on the motorway, do you call it a motorway in Wayne? You've got the experience, as we've said.
More like a highway, I think.
Highway, motorway, whatever. Yeah. You've got a car of balls.
Benny Balls.
Benny Balls.
Balls, yeah.
You've got a family looking like they're going on a holiday, which he thinks they're accountants, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He says they're accountants.
And the kids are fighting in the back, I believe.
And then you have, a frisky couple with just married on their car. We won't say what they're doing.
So you can buy no. Because what I liked about Pat Quid's character, I'm sure you thought got this as well, it very much plays against the typical trucker stereotype. Because like I say, he's not in bad shape, he's eloquent, he's very cheery for a man that's been up since 5 o'clock in the morning. He's got a great sense of humour, like I say, loves to quote poetry, and has this very interesting dialogue with his dingo.
Well, even with the sports balls car in front of him, he says, there's a man with balls.
But even then, he says it with this really facetious tone, like, oh, there's a man with a lot of balls.
Yeah, he delivers it very well. On our last episode, I had a criticism of Upgrade, how the humour didn't play into the tone of the piece, where Stacy Keach is delivering these lines so well.
Absolutely.
It never takes
I
away
think I think he deserves a lot of praise because he is very tongue-in-cheek, and you can see the way it's done, it's just to amuse himself, just to keep himself entertained on what's going to be a very long trip.
But on this motorway, Wayne, who do we pass? Who do we pass who's on the side of the street? Side of the motorway, sorry.
I believe it's a hitcher.
And she's called, or he calls her, Hitch.
Hitch, which is a quite on-the-nose reference to Mr. Hitchcock, I believe.
I'd say so. And we also get the green van. That green van, the mysterious green van from the motel.
One of the recurring elements in the film, yeah.
Because he says, as the green van passes him, or he sees the green van, whichever one he does, he says, why does anyone get up at 5 a.m. to watch garbage collectors? We get a radio news broadcast, and they found body parts.
There's a killer on the loose, yeah. That's something else I think this film does well. It's kind of a detective story, but pretty much all of the detective work is happening inside the lead character's head. And he's constantly, because like you say, the observation about the bin men, interesting observation, and he starts to put pieces together as he goes along the trip. That's what I like. It's like he's building this case as he goes across the country.
Well, this film is deceptively simple. You think it's just A, B, C, D, E, but you're going within all these what you think are simple structures. There's a lot going on. You're setting up the periphery characters. You're setting up a sense of foreboding, aren't you? There's a lot going on.
A lot of seeds are planted very, very early. And like I say, you could look at it as a simple trip across the country, but there are a lot of things at play at any one time.
But he follows the green van, doesn't he, on the motorway, and they pass another periphery character, that damn car pulling that damn boat.
Yeah. What's up with that guy? The way he's kind of sitting kind of weird. He looks like he's never done this before.
When they pass him, how does his windscreen break? Care to explain?
Or was it like a rock that got chucked up?
Was it a rock?
I think a rock maybe got chucked up because he stops and he freaks out, doesn't he?
Because he's not happy, is he?
No, because Quaid's like looking him in the window as he comes by.
Yeah, well. But he'll play a part later, won't he?
Yeah, that's what there's not much in this film that's a throwaway. A lot of it does kind of come back and is important later on. Something I did notice in this film is that, and a lot of reviewers point this out, there's nothing that distinctly Australian about a lot of the outback. A lot of it looks like it could have been filmed anywhere. One reviewer said it might as well have been filmed off the New Jersey Turnpike.
It looked really effective, though.
It did look effective, but
regardless of where it looked,
yeah.
I thought it looked really good. There's an emptiness to it.
Well,
you can sense
because Australia does have a lot of this empty space, but there's a lot of Outback has this very distinct kind of redness, which you see in a lot of films. But here, it didn't look that Australian. There were like kind of names and signs and stuff I recognised, but
So what, you thought it kind of looked homogenous? It could be any kind of like desert type landscape.
essentially, yeah, it didn't look. I mean, I think they used the space and everything well, but for a lot of it, I didn't think there was anything that distinct about the landscapes. Yeah.
Funnily enough, Wayne, there is ribbons or toilet roll or something blocking his path.
It's right across the highway.
Where he has to stop, and we are introduced to the irritating Madeline Day.
I wrote chatty rather than irritating.
I'm going with irritating. I'm sticking to that, Wayne.
But also, what do you think of her story? She's been left behind by her husband, who she speaks highly of. I don't know about you. I'd be pretty annoyed if my partner left me on my own in the Aussie outback.
Don't give her any ideas.
No, let's not. No.
But she objects, kind of, to the dingo, which is when he says clean, intelligent, and quiet.
Yeah.
I think he's picked a creature he sees himself in, isn't he?
I think so, yeah. I feel like he's picked it because it's maybe a bit more, not upper class, more cultured, because I think he does see himself as quite a cultured man, not arrogantly.
Well, he says, I drive a truck. I'm not a truck driver.
I do like that line.
And what is Madeline Day's daughter called? Doris Day.
Doris Day. Oh,
she
yeah.
gets this in the story, doesn't she?
Because does she not say that the husband calls him like sunshine or something like that?
But weirdly, you know how she gets out the car from her annoying husband? Mm-hmm. She also states to Quaid that there's a maniac running around butchering young girls. Well, she had no reservations of getting in this truck.
No. Did he seem kind of deflective when he was bringing that up?
Well, he says, maniac? Did they say what rig he drove? Which she panics a bit.
She does, yeah.
There is a setup in this film, though, isn't there? There's a very constructed setup where you suspect Quaid a little, don't you? You suspect him the whole time.
There are even scenes where Quaid is being questioned by some kind of official, and it's like he doesn't ever outright deny anything. It's almost like he leaves that possibility hanging.
I wonder if that's why he's a truck driver. He's kind of got this loner spirit. He's almost anti-authoritarian, isn't he?
Well, he did say at one point he's been doing this for, was it like 5 to 6 years or something he's been driving? Because he's got his own name. It's not like a bored truck. He's got his own name on the truck.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, so he's obviously been doing it for quite a while.
And they play I Spy.
Yeah.
And it's quite innocuous, I suppose. Would you do that with some random person, I suppose?
I suppose so. They just seem to annoy each other all the time, though, like picking annoying objects to spy.
She says she spots an animal at one point, and he's looking around. He has no idea. Where is this animal? Is it dingo? No, it's not dingo. It's a man in a green van, parked, digging.
Burying a body. Honestly, the dude's doing it right next to the highway, and that seemed kind of conspicuous.
In the daytime as well.
In the middle of the day as well, yeah. And this is where I think his mind really goes into overdrive, doesn't he? Because he stops and he gets out to look through his binoculars.
Is he that far away?
But he doesn't look that far away, but he gets caught and he tries to do that.
He does that movie thing when they
tries to play it off as if he wasn't actually looking at him.
Because he's like, what was he burying? A body? No, she says, what was he burying? And he says, could it be a body or something? And he said, it wouldn't fit in there. And she panics.
Or wouldn't fit in the bag.
Yeah, he said it would if you cut its head off.
Very astute observation.
And she legs it.
Yeah, she
does not like that. And you know, she runs to the stupidest place, Wayne. Where does she run?
She runs to the coast, the very edge of a cliff.
Edge.
Yeah. Honestly, running off in the outback, stupid enough, but the fact that you've run off to this cliff edge, yeah. And there's a kind of standoffish situation here.
And she and her husband, they've been getting kind of, what would you say? They've been getting bad messages and crap messages because are they being blamed for the strike? There's an ongoing strike with it throughout this whole film.
Because was he on like a union, or did he work? Was he a politician, or he was some kind of representative, and they were blaming him for this meat strike?
Yeah, because I think that's why Quid's driving the porkers, isn't he? Because they couldn't get the workers.
There's like a meat deficit over there, and that keeps coming up because it's on the radio a lot. But so he has to drive this meat right the way across the country.
But we do get to a roadhouse. When he's calmed Madeline down, he escorts her back to the truck, and we get to a roadhouse where he's on the phone.
Now, this is a very interesting scene, because did you see the decor in this place?
What was it?
It was what looks like colonialists murdering Indigenous Australians.
Oh, really?
Which you would never be able to do that on any wall nowadays. That's unbelievable they did that. But this plays into this Ozploitation thing, because what are all the people in this bar like? They're very suspicious. They're very hostile, and they're just giving him this angry look.
Oh yeah, well he's ignored because he's phoning the police of information of this guy digging.
Yeah, and what idiot is he talking to on the phone? Because he has to spell his name out. He has to spell his name out several times.
He's spelling his name out and he's going Q for such and such, U for such and such. And when he gets to D, he says, as in death of young girls. And that's when you cretin. Then that's where the music stops. Because they've played music throughout the whole scene. The other patrons who are not taken to him. And it does that classic movie thing when he says death of young girls, you cretin, the music just stops and everybody gives him a...
Did you also notice that 360 shot in this scene?
That was a great shot.
I think the director had to fight to have that in because I think the producers thought it was, I don't know if it's too artsy or just unnecessary, but it's great because it establishes the atmosphere in the place.
We also, it showed a great sense of setting. And we also were introduced in that scene to the red leather biker.
This guy, he's sat outside, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in the bar though. He's at the bar and that's a costume, isn't it? That red leather. Yeah,
that does not look comfortable for part of the country they are.
But bikers kind of show up a lot in Ozploitation films. Stone.
There's a lot of them in Mad Max. It was a whole gang of them. Yeah, interestingly, here's another thing as well. Where is this scene taking place? It's Yellowdine.
Yellowdine.
I think it was Yellowdine. Do you know where Yellowdine is?
Where's that?
It's in Western Australia, like the biggest state in the country. That's, some hours from Perth. He started off in Melbourne, which is the very southeast of Australia. He's got to Western Australia. On Google Maps, that says it would take you 32 hours.
Yep.
How long did it take him to do it?
It didn't take long.
Because I checked on Google Maps. The distance he's covered is further than New York to Los Angeles. And what gets me... Fair enough if this was made by somebody from...
An outsider, yeah.
We've mentioned this before. In the UK, you travel 250 miles, you go through several major cities. Australia, you wouldn't be anywhere. But this
Very vast.
But this was made by Australians. So why would... They must have considered this, the fact that this is an impossible distance.
Do you think with the leads in this film being American, do you think this was a film almost kind of trying to cater to an American audience?
I think it probably was. But even again, America's a big country as well, so that's...
Yeah, but
it's the distance thing.
Americans are notoriously bad with their geography.
Yeah, I think this was just a scene to get him where he needed to be, but because, like I say, he's already crossed most of the country.
And when he gets out this roadhouse, somebody has cut Boswell on the head. Is it a cut on Boswell's head?
It's like they've hit him on the head with something because he's got like a gash on his head.
And as a thriller does, the green van is still fucking there.
The green van is still there. I like how the green van is almost like its own character.
It is.
It's like a stalking figure.
It's like this ominous stalking figure, isn't it?
It's like a presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
It is a fantastic idea. It even looks weird, that van.
Do you know what this film kind of reminded me of? Did you ever see Spielberg's Jewel?
Jewel, yeah.
It kind of has that
I got Jewel vibes,
to
yeah.
it.
But it's almost like backwards because then it was a guy in like a truck being chased by a lorry. It's almost the other way around, yeah. I did get those Jewel vibes, yeah.
And he follows the green van, and that's where we come. This is where that fucking car, trailer, pulling boat thing comes into play.
Right, what was going on here? Was this guy... This could not have been an accident. This has to be deliberate, this guy trying to block Quid getting through.
Yeah, so the green van gets by, but the guy tugging the boat will not let Quid by.
Again, he just swerves left and right. Anytime Quid tries to get by, he keeps swerving left and right.
It's because he knackered his windscreen before.
Must have got the back of windscreen now. He's really pissed off at him. Actually,
But the anchor drops off the boat.
It does. This scene does highlight another thing I loved about this film. You notice the ways a lot of the cars are shot during chase scenes. They're shot kind of low up. Yeah. It's very brutal raw.
Yeah.
That was the same with Mad Max. Again, it adds this kind of brutalness, this really visceral feel to the action scenes.
Very machinery type thing.
Because I thought this chase is very raw. There's no fancy camera angles, no fancy editing tricks. It's just a lot of like kind of pounding like metal and grinding engine noises.
For all the money that's put into modern films, you cannot beat pure physical in-camera stunts.
Stripped down, simplistic, yeah. Like not lots of cuts, fancy editing, yeah. Everything just very raw and very brutal.
You don't need computer CGI.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a scene where one guy is trying to get past another guy on the highway, but it's filmed in such a way that it's actually exciting.
Well, the anchor bloody drops off that boat, gets stuck under the truck, and he pulls the boat off the damn
because he slams the brake and he pulls off. This guy's having a bad day.
And he smashes into that boat.
Yeah, he does. He smashes through the boat. Even then, that real visceral sound of the wood
smashing. Do you know what,
Wayne?
I don't think that guy's going fishing.
No, I don't think that guy's going anywhere right now.
But this is where we're introduced, Wayne. Not far after this. Hitch.
Hitch again.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Because we have seen her from this angle at the back with the hat on. We've seen her several times like with a thumb up.
Thumb up, yeah.
Would you believe now he was actually willing to pick somebody up after the kind of experiences he's just had?
I don't know. He needs somebody to talk to. He's very inner monologued, isn't he?
I'd pick up Jamie Lee Curtis if she was hitchhiking.
Pervert.
But yeah, he picks her up. Like I say, I couldn't believe that he'd picked her up after all the stuff he's been through.
No, he says, "Aren't you a little young to be hitchhiking?" And she says, "Aren't you a little old to be picking me up?"
No, as long as you can drive, surely.
How old would you say he is? Mid-40s-ish?
He is. I think he's mid-40s.
Yeah, there's a news broadcast later that says a man in his mid-40s, but they don't know. It's just somebody's observation of how old.
Well, at this point, the police aren't even connecting those two dismembered bodies.
No, this is way before that.
It says it's just a coincidence.
And she's kind of on the lam. Not that on the lam, that's a bit too strong. She's run away from home, or as she says, walked away.
She's walked away, yeah, and she's not been in contact with her father,
because his father lives with a whore now.
With a whore. That's her
words.
That's her exact words. Jamie Lee Curtis, her character is very blunt in this film because very quickly they start talking about the killer. They start speculating about him, and do you notice she seems a lot more open and honest in her discussion of the killer?
Oh yeah, she sees this as a very exciting thing, doesn't she? She's almost taken on board. She's going with his flights of fancy that there could be this killer on the run.
It's interesting because before he was speculating himself, but now that she's offering theories, he's almost deflective, especially when the topic of sex comes up.
Well, he says, and I've got a few quotes here, he says, he's just killed a girl, which she says, did he make love to her first? Quid says, I don't know, what's the difference? And she says, it makes a lot of difference. I think in order to play the game properly, we have to know what he thinks of women.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Well, she's got a point there, I suppose.
What is this game they're playing?
Yeah, what is this game, Wayne? This seems a kind of a fucked up game.
Definitely.
They get stopped by the cops, though, don't they?
They do get pulled over.
They do get stopped.
And this seems to be another theme of these movies where the authority figures are especially bad because they really throw their weight around because they're pulled over by these two cops who are questioning Quid.
Yep.
And like I say, he doesn't ever seem to outright deny anything. He seems kind of ambiguous with some of his answers.
Well, in classic Hitchcockian style, he's being almost set up because the cops say the manager of the motel claims you checked in with a young girl matching the description on a missing lady.
Mm-hmm.
And his name's been on the register of that motel. But he says it could have been copied off his truck because obviously his name's on the truck.
Very good point, yeah.
And he has a logbook, which everybody in this film refers to them logbooks as the Book of Lies.
The Book of Lies, yeah. But then again, I know lorry drivers who have actually admitted that they just put lies on like the tachographs and stuff.
I suppose back then you weren't tracked, so
no,
you can only drive for a certain amount of hours, but I suppose they just fiddle with their logbooks.
Yeah, now it's like 8 hours because it's actually digital, so...
And then we're in a campfire, funnily enough, after that.
Desert. And another thing I love about this scene is he tells a story about, what was it, an old mining town?
An old mining town that's been... Was there a drought caused? Or not a drought? Yeah, a drought pretty much by a plague of rabbits.
Yeah, the rabbits must have came and ate all the vegetation, which is something that happened.
It was true, yeah.
Because the rabbits were introduced to Australia, and rabbits being rabbits, they multiplied, and essentially there was a plague of rabbits. They had to put fences up in Australia to keep these rabbits out. That's how bad it was.
Because after that, well, she mentions that her father is he works for a diplomat, doesn't he?
He's quite high up.
Which would explain why she's American.
Yes.
So we're getting some background there. And she goes off for the toilet, and he's chomping on the carrot, which ties in with the bunnies. And he says, watch out for the bunnies, and then takes a big chomp on that carrot.
Mm-hmm. And
it's quite threatening. It looks quite menacing. Because this film, as I said, it's setting up he may be the killer.
He could be, yeah. Because
everything else, the guy in the green van, could be innocuous and mean nothing. He may be the killer.
Most of this film is told from Quid's perspective, so this could be just him telling his version of events. Do you notice there's a strange cut in this scene? She walks up. Does she not look over?
She sees the green van.
Yeah, she sees this green van. Then there's a flash of lightning, and it just cuts to next morning.
Why did she never mention? They've been tracking down this green van.
You think she would have done?
Yeah, I never understood. She never mentions that green van was there.
Because that's far too important a thing to mention off screen.
Yeah, because after that, we wake up in the morning.
Because, like I say, it just cuts to the morning immediately. I thought it was a strange cut.
I do love in these throwback films to whether it's Hitchcock and that, where they use thunder and lightning as almost like an aesthetic, don't they?
It is quite a cheesy effect.
No, I like it, though. Yeah. Brian De Palma he's guilty of that kind of thing as well.
It comes up in a lot of Stephen King adaptations as well, just lightning effects.
There is these visceral things, though, these kind of visceral things that humans are innately kind of suspicious of, thunder, lightning, they just work, don't they?
Apparently when we're born, the only two natural fears we have are falling and loud noises.
Is that true?
Yes, just like I say, it's an innate fear that we have.
So morning, she writes tomorrow's bacon on the back of the truck.
And she tells it's like a little poem about it. It sounds like a song lyric.
They're very poetic, these two.
They are, yeah, especially good, yeah. They could learn a lot from each other.
Well, he mentions some poem, and she says to him, poems are old and dusty. You're not old and dusty. And then she asks him, how old are you? And he says, too old. Because there's almost a little romantic bit there, isn't there? They look at each other a little.
There is a bit of thing going on there.
There's a bit of chemistry there, we could say.
I think the chemistry between them is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And again, it's like almost like dangling a carrot, just enough. Is there something? Will they, won't they kind of thing?
No, we'll get to that. No, we'll get to that later. Because after that, we're at the petrol station, and she phones home, and apparently her sister is wondering if she's been getting raped or something.
Yeah, which is kind of a odd thing to ask somebody over the phone.
And then we get this sports ball car guy again.
Again, he drove by, and I literally, watching this film, went, Benny Balls, and pointed
Benny Balls is there, Benny Balls.
Again, it's like an offhand remark, but you remember it so well because, I don't know, it's so well delivered, or it's just such a funny little quote.
This film is setting up everything. It's so great, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. It set
but
up
who else is there, Wayne?
Well, it's the guy in the funny red biker suit.
And who else? Green van.
The green van is sitting again.
The green van is always damn there.
Again, that shot, it just sits there looking at the green van, which is just sat there.
And a sense of threat constantly throughout the film.
It's like a threatening van. It's almost like the movie Christine, because it's an inanimate object, but it is threatening.
And she goes to check out that van, don't they? They go see. It looks empty. It appears empty. Is it empty? We'll find out.
Seems like a bad idea, but he goes into the toilets.
And he picks up a bit of scrap, it looks like. Almost like a scrapped cross.
It looks like a fan. I think it was like a fan from a car engine. And he goes,
and there's boots under the stall.
I love that shot under the stall, that classic underneath the stall black boot thing.
Black boots, black gloves.
Definitely killer. Also, just as a side note, did you see what was written on the wall?
Oh, no. I did see. What is it? It's something about the indigenous again.
It's don't root abos, mate, which, when I was reading about this film, they said it was either put into some kind of sick joke, or it was something that would go over the heads of Americans, because don't root abos, mate. Root is Australian slang for sex, and abos is, of course, Aborigines, the indigenous Australians. Yeah. So don't have sex with Aborigines. So it's one of those like vulgar little jokes that's thrown in, but you can imagine, with the people we've seen in this film, the locals, that's the thing you could imagine them writing on a toilet wall.
And there's a damn car alarm that plays throughout most of this scene.
Oh yeah, the guy pulls in, it won't turn off. It's like a weird. It's almost like the scene's own score. This alarm.
Oh yeah, it's setting up another threat. You're getting this kind of disorientating loud beep, aren't you?
But it's making you feel, it's putting you on edge like the characters, because they're annoyed this bloody alarm keeps playing while he's trying to essentially intimidate the guy who's in this bathroom stall.
And do you want to tell us who's in that stall, Wayne?
Well, it turns out it's actually our friend, the red biker. It's not
red
who we
leather
thought it was.
biker guy, taking a shit, apparently.
Shitting in the toilet. But the guy doesn't say anything. I'm guessing he was just really scared because Quaid's throwing all these threats at him while he's on the bog doing his business.
He seems quite wimpy for a biker, does he not?
He does, yeah. He's a very kind of soft-looking guy.
And we should say also in this scene, we find out Madeline's hitched a ride with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one from earlier has,
Yeah, the bloody Madeline, that irritating cliff woman.
What was it? She's not found her husband yet, I take it then.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't want her back, Wayne.
No, definitely
There's
not.
a reason he left
That's
her.
the reason he left her, but we cut to Hitch, or Pamela.
Pamela, we find out, yeah.
As turns out her name, but Pamela, she goes into the van, and there's a great scene where the killer's lying on the floor.
In a sleeping bag.
Yeah, and you know one thing I love about the scares in this movie? You know in modern horror films how they
jump
have
scares.
The dun musical stinger. There is none of that in this film. Anytime there's any kind of scare, it's like you're left to make your own kind of scared sound.
Yeah, they're not going the cheap way on this, are they?
No, there's no people popping
everything is earned.
There's no people popping out of the dark and like slamming hands on shoulders. No, it's like you say, the scares are earned, but they're built up and they're earned.
And she is taken away, isn't she?
She's kidnapped.
She is kidnapped by Green Van Man. I keep calling him Green Van Man. Did he ever have a name?
No, it's just the killer, isn't he? I don't think the news even gave him a name.
I'd be pissed if the van didn't turn out to be green. I've just keep calling him Green Van Man.
Just Green Van Man, yeah.
And when Hitch finds out she's gone, he gets on the biker's bike and crashes it almost immediately.
Now, what did you think about that moment when he crashes the bike straight after driving it off?
It was a bit silly, wasn't it?
But do you know why I really liked it? I felt like it humanized Quid. He's not an action hero.
Oh, no.
He doesn't jump on the bike, because mostly, like, if it was any other
Fast and the Furious.
he'd jump on the bike, he'd pop a wheelie, and he'd blast off the... But no, he gets on it, spins it off, almost falls off immediately, goes, oh, shit, and then has to go and kind of get back in his truck. Let's say, it humanizes him.
Yeah, in a modern film, he'd be burning rubber and kicking Dwayne Johnson's ass in a moment, wouldn't he?
Exactly. He's a clever character, but he has his flaws. And I think it was a fantastic decision to have that in. It seems like a silly little moment, but I didn't even laugh because I really felt for him.
No, it's great. And the petrol station people, they take a dislike to old Quid after this. And at least he has his dingo. The dingo attacks.
They do, because they're
wards
actually
them off.
They're surrounding him because they've got the alarm off at this point, but these people have surrounded him, and he's trying to lower the cab on his trailer.
Because Quid says, that's right, go straight for your crotch if you're not careful.
Exactly, yeah.
And then he just peels away in his truck. Not the bike, the truck.
He gets he just blasts off at this point, yeah. Actually, this brings us to an interesting thing I found on offscreen.com. There was an article about Ozploitation films, and it was talking about the final girl trope. Because in horror films like your Friday the 13th, Halloween's, Nightmare on Elm Street, things like that, you have the final girl. Well, here, the girl is Jamie Lee Curtis, and she's gone, and she's actually gone for a long time. She's gone basically until almost the end of the movie. So it's, again, because at this point all anyone had ever seen of Jamie Lee Curtis was these horror films, she's now out of the film for a long time.
Which Richard Franklin almost regretted, the director of this film.
Did, yeah.
He wished he had used her more. Because it's Jamie Lee Curtis, you think, it's Jamie Lee Curtis, she should have been in it more. But for the film itself and the structure of the film, it actually works. If that was just a random other actress, you'd think, that worked really well.
Because you did not expect that to happen. Again, it subverts those cliches of the genre. And her not being in the film, because this is 1981 Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, she was a pretty big star, but nothing like the name she is now. But her being out of the film now is unexpected.
Almost like her mother, Vivian Lee, in Psycho, who's offed halfway through.
Again, another one, a Hitchcock film, she disappears, which somebody pointed out the genius of that film is now we're left to kind of empathise with Norman Bates.
How many times do you think Jamie Lee Curtis has been a final girl? Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Prom Night, This. I know it's not really it's not a slasher horror film. I don't know if you'd go
Not technically, no.
Halloween H2O, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills. I mean, she's getting up there. She's maybe the most unkillable person in horror.
She's undefeated against Michael Myers, anyway.
Halloween Resurrection, she was offed.
Oh, I suppose she was in that one, yeah.
So yeah, he tails this van, doesn't he? And he's beeping. And I love this shot, right? On the motorway, he's tailing. And there's a shot where the camera pans from the back of the green van into the driver's mirror. And it shows the van man looking through his driver's mirror. The camera then pulls back from the front of Quid's truck as the van peels away. That's a very Hitchcockian, camera movement.
There's another fantastic shot in this chase as well where you see the brake lights of the van on his windscreen and it moves up right into his eyes.
Oh, we were going to get to that.
Yes, we get to that, but that's a fantastic
It's a great shot.
I love that shot as well.
And how the road lines are crossing over the screen. It's like a double exposure.
Because he has that determined, focused look on his face and the camera, and like I say, the lights pan up into his eyes.
There is moments where Quid can look a little sinister.
He can, but that's the thing is because he can be very determined. He's not flippant about this. He's now in full attack mode, you could say.
Well, you don't know in this film, kind of, if he's the average guy who's flipped like a Norman Bates almost, or if he's a fall guy like James Stewart in Rear Window.
Because it's a good point, because at this point, this is where him talking to himself gets more frantic and more frenzied. And he even says to himself a few times, I'm not the killer. But it's like he's not even sure he believes that himself.
Yeah, he convinces himself the whole time, because there's this inner monologue where he justifies his actions or why he's not the killer. And he also sees Pam sitting in the green van when he's following her. And he thinks, they look a bit friendly, don't they? Yeah. She's not struggling. He's thinking she may be like a grifter because he checks for his wallet.
It looks like he's sitting there basically as a calm passenger.
And we also get then the radio news comes on where they say Pam is missing, seen with a trucker, fear he may be connected to missing girls. And you can, maybe old Quid over there isn't as innocent as we think.
Again, because most of this film takes place in this truck. So again, this could be this fantasy that he's made up.
But he spots that van again, parked
on the side of the road.
An arrest area.
Yeah, this was a great scene because let's be honest, not loads happens at this scene, but the way that it's paced,
Oh,
the way
yeah.
it's built up, the way it's directed, and the score,
It was like Bernard Herrmann.
you were sitting there the whole time tense, because any other film, somebody would have popped out the dark, but it wouldn't have been the killer. It would have been someone who's
Yep.
drunk or something.
Do you think this film, the score for this film, accelerated in the thriller aspects? That's when it was strongest.
It was, yeah.
It was very much harkening back to the Hitchcockian Bernard Herrmann scores.
Because, like I say, when he's driving on the road and you get that kind of tap to tap tap thing,
Yeah.
it's just kind of background noise. But when it's in these scenes, it's at its best.
But when he checks this rest area, he hears, "Oh, Harry." Mm-hmm. And he takes that as that the Green Van Man is Harry. Mm-hmm. And she is getting frisky with him.
Mm-hmm. Very frisky, yeah.
But it's not Wayne.
No, it's not.
Who is it, Wayne? It's the damn just married couple
Yeah.
who we get introduced to near the start of the film on the motorway.
Again, a seed planted blossoms later on.
But he never checks. All he hears is, "Oh,
doesn't.
Harry."
He just walks away after that.
But I like that in that thriller tradition, the camera pans and shows the audience that the van is not the Green Van Man, it's the just married van.
just the mad van, so we know that, but
yeah,
he
we know
doesn't.
that, he does not.
But he goes over to the van, and there's like an icebox or an esky.
Yeah, we should have actually said, previously when he's looked into this green van, there has been a lunchbox, and that's kind of a motif. So when he goes to this green van now, which is empty, he looks into the lunchbox.
It opens the esky, and we get a pan down.
Fruit.
Chocolate cake.
A banana.
Looks delicious, to be honest.
It's just a lunchbox.
Again, this is another scene where any other film would have had maybe the killer jumping up behind him or something, but no. He's deflated, and he just kind of walks away.
No, he smashes the van up a little.
Or was it the wing where he just bashed the
Yeah,
side of the door?
he gets a little. His temper loses. He loses his temper a little bit.
Which makes sense, because he has this kind of rage has been building in him like over the last day.
But this dingo man, it's an intelligent dog. He wasn't lying, because it's at the back of the van.
It's at the very back of the van, yeah.
Unbeknownst to Quid, the back door's open.
Yeah, he moves off and the back door opens. Yeah, but
There's a great scene when he gets in the truck. Every time the gear changes, the camera jolts back and jolts back and jolts back into the back of the cab of the truck. And is that a blanket that falls out? What is that thing that falls out? It looks like a blanket of some
it wasn't
sort.
actually. It wasn't one of the pigs hanging up, was it? Was it just
No,
a blanket?
no.
No, it couldn't have been. No, it couldn't have been. I think it was a blanket that fell out. Yeah.
But once that happens, you think, oh, well, it's just a blanket. It's just a false fright. It's almost a jump scare. But then the camera edges back, and then we see the fridge gauge, the freezer gauge.
The temperature's
the
going up.
temperature gauge, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, that's all I need now.
So he goes to check. Mm-hmm. And this is quite an effective scene. He goes into the back of the porkers.
Mm-hmm. And there's two porkers which are
They're lined across the...
lined up right at the end.
Yeah, and the lights are flickering the whole time. Mm-hmm. And we're 2 over. Mm-hmm. There's 2 new carcasses. Mm-hmm. But he's not really that sure, is he?
No. What's interesting is this scene is kind of like the scene at that rest stop before, where the scenes where really nothing happens, there's no massive payoff, but they still feel like very worthy scenes because of how they're directed, because of how they're acted, because of how the suspense is built, because you're always expecting something to happen.
And because he convinces himself, doesn't he, that there must be, the company must have added, just to be nice to the customer, 2 extra carcasses.
Oh yeah, he says, oh yeah, they must have miscalculated or something like that. And he walks away and kind of doesn't think anything more of it.
And he's convincing himself, and he gets to this station, and we were...
Weybridge.
Mm-hmm. And Lester's there.
Yeah, it must be a friend of his, because he...
A lonely old guy, isn't it?
Yeah, lonely little guy at the Weybridge. And Lester does actually say you're overweight.
Because I think it's 70 kilograms, isn't it?
Something like that, about 70 kilograms.
Very specific, and he also finds wire under his truck.
It's wire. Was it wrapped around the
Do
axle?
you think that came from the boat?
I'm thinking so, because I'm thinking
Or do you think the van guy... Oh, I wonder if it was the Green Van Man when he put the pigs in.
It could have been that, but then again, it could also have been of someone that got tangled up if he'd driven...
from the boat.
Because again, that bit where he's driving, because at this point, he's really sleep deprived.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I started to think a lot of what happened here, we could be going with the unreliable narrator thing.
Yeah, you could be seeing things through his subjective. And because was there aspects when you think, oh, Christ, maybe Quid's the killer here?
Yeah, there are moments when... Because you're led to believe that maybe he's not being as honest and as forthcoming as we've seen so far.
Because this film is all very much a cat and mouse game. Because even when he pulls into this Weybridge, you have the green van there.
And the cops that are there, probably not the same ones as earlier, but the cops are talking to the green van because he's run out of fuel.
And he directs them to petrol.
They push him.
They push him.
They push his van to the petrol station, and he wants to be away as soon as he can because he's reached Perth now. He's at the Perth city limits.
He again follows this green van.
Yeah.
He does not give up.
This is where we get
This is
into
a very persistent man, Wayne.
kind of a chase sequence here when he starts chasing because he runs a red light.
Oh yeah, when we get to the town.
Yeah, which is what gets the cops on his tail.
And the cops are behind him.
And here, this is a great car chase, I think.
It was a great car.
Very well done, very taut. It's at the night, so it's very dark, and he's just chasing this killer through these.
Because he's saying, he wants us to follow him.
Exactly, yeah.
And what is with that old guy trying to pick up his glasses?
I don't know.
What the hell is he? Because we're going through this, it's almost like an alley.
It's like an alleyway.
Before the main alley, there's another alley. And this old guy's dropped his glasses. And with each passing vehicle, there's three of them. There's the green van, there's Quid, and there's the cops behind him. And he keeps going to get his glasses. And he can't. And it's the cops who run the damn glasses over.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to say, do you think that's trying to say something because the killer didn't run over his glasses, Quid didn't, but it was the police that did? Do you think that's trying to say something, or is that just a coincidence?
No, I think Richard Franklin's steeped in Ozploitation. I think these guys have a natural anti-authoritarian streak.
That's probably what it
That's
is.
what
yeah.
I think it is. Like, fuck the man.
But I did like that. I thought Quid was going to run over, but when the cops did it, I was like, that's an interesting little.
But this was a really invent. We're near the end. The alleyway, the actual alleyway, when they get stuck, because the green van goes through this small alleyway. Quid follows in his large truck. The cops behind him. The green van can get through easy. But the big truck, man, that gets stuck. It's too wide.
Quid now can't get out
And he
either
can't
because
even
he
get out of
tries.
his
He tries
windows.
both doors and he can't get out of either of them.
Which, that is so great. It's so simple and yet so effective.
So claustrophobic as well.
I mean, you're taking a basic pedestrian, normal little alleyway, and you're using this setup to create such a tremendous sense of menace.
yeah, they're using this, again, very simple thing, just being stuck in an alley, but they're getting so much out of it because it's, like I say, this cat and mouse game, it's kind of reaching its finale because his
The top of the lorry, isn't
the top of it, it's stuck into this thing.
Because the alleyway is it's covered, isn't it? There's a cover into the
there's
alley.
a cover on top, but it's caught on his trailer, and he
Yeah.
can't get the trailer out of it.
In one of the stupidest moves, why the hell did one cop instruct the other cop to crawl under Quid's lorry?
That was monumentally stupid because the guy he gets tangled up in the wire.
In the wire under Quid's axle.
Again, they told us about the wire, and it comes into play. Just
Foreboding.
Foreboding, yeah.
I love them little things.
It's fantastic, yeah. But he tries to basically power his way through this alleyway.
Yeah. And he eventually... Oh, well, no. Before that, when he actually stuck the green van man... I'm sick of saying green van man, but we'll go with it. We've gone away 3/4 of the way
We've
through.
come this far.
We've come this far. You may as well just stick with us. It's the green van man now.
Yeah.
So he comes with a spade, doesn't he? The spade he used to dig in the desert
To dig the grave earlier.
is now the weapon. He smashes up the Quid's poor lorry.
Yeah, smashes up his windscreen, isn't it?
He does eye him up a good amount first.
He smashes eye, but Quid manages to move forward. He manages to kind of overpower, dislodge this thing, and knocks the guy off. And that's where does the cab come away from the trailer?
Yeah, the cab dislodges from the trailer, and the lorry rears onto the top of green van.
It goes onto the top of the green van. Yeah.
Doesn't get the green van man. No, it gets the green van.
No, he gets away, and there's a crowd of people. Obviously, because of all this commotion, there's a crowd of people that gathered, and he walks off into the crowd.
Very rear window, Wayne.
Very
rear window.
Because he's now the observer has now
He's the
entered.
Yeah, and he's the fall guy now.
He is, because he gets. Because he comes out, and the cops, because there's all these cops on, they come and they arrest him and take him up against a wall. And I thought the film was going to end here. I thought this was going to
Were
be.
you worried it was going to end there?
I was, yeah. I thought.
Did you think it was going to give one of them unsatisfying endings?
But I thought, if this film ended now, would I be satisfied with this? Is that kind of what I wanted or expected?
What would you have preferred? Do you have a preference? Would you have liked the ambiguity? Like, oh shit, was it?
I suppose so, but I do like the way.
Yeah,
I would actually,
as well.
because he tells them to look in the.
Do you know who the fuck is there again in that bystanders, Wayne?
Oh, is it
It's Madeline.
It's bloody Madeline again.
Madeline, what the hell?
I think Madeline's responsible for all of this.
Maybe she's the killer.
Must be, yeah. But they find that in this van there's a body in a sleeping bag.
The sleeping bag again, yes.
Yeah, and this is where I thought, oh yeah, Hitch, yeah. So they tip it out, and yeah, it's Hitch again.
Hitch has reared herself up again, and let's quit off the hook.
Yeah. Do you know what I actually thought was going to happen? I thought when the cop said, because they bring the other guy, because he tries to escape through the crowd, the green van man, and they bring him up towards where Quid is.
Yeah.
And the cops say, which of these guys kidnapped you? I thought she was going to say Quid. And this is where we're going to get to, oh my God, he's been making all of this up in his head kind of thing. But no, she was like, this guy,
or they were in on it, both of them together.
Yeah.
And he was going to just be the fall guy.
Again, because of all this, what we've seen lately, because he's so sleep deprived, he's not quite mentally there.
Well, unirritated Madeline shouts to the cops, he tried to throw me off a cliff.
No, he tried to save you from the cliff,
Yes.
you fool.
You were the one backing off the
This
cliff.
was your fault. But she's like, Jamie Lee Curtis says, this guy, you jerk.
Yeah.
So they takes him away, and that's kind of a breath of fresh air.
And the dingo, oh, do you know what though? The dingo
Oh,
barks.
the dingo's bark, and he's like, he barks?
He's not a dingo, is he?
No, he's not. He's not actually a dingo. It's surprising.
Do you think that was a comment underpinning? Because Quid sees himself as this intelligent, he's a truck driver, but not a truck driver, and he's spouting poetry in that. And under his nose the whole time, he couldn't even sense his dingo was a dog.
It was actually a dog. That's a good point, actually. I mean, he's been talking to this dog, this dingo dog. Sorry,
Dingo dog.
This dingo dog. He's been talking to it the entire time.
So it underpins his intelligence a little.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But then what's weird is this is where we get another kind of strange cut, like the lighting
Middle of the
went over,
road.
and they're just walking along the middle of the road. So I'm guessing he lost his truck, or it's probably been impounded as evidence.
Quid and
That's it.
Hitch walking down, just bags on their back now.
Yeah.
And do you know how much worth of damage he's caused?
Oh, how much was it again?
$100,000.
That's fair enough. Oh, well, I'll take that out of the movie's budget, I guess.
Because he says to her, I thought that body was you hanging in the back of a truck.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you would, wouldn't you? Because that's how it's set up. But because this movie is very subversive with a lot of its tropes, that's not what actually happens.
Oh, and there's this little tag at the end, Wayne. We
Yeah.
cut from there again to the butchers. Oh, and they're chopping carcasses. They unload the truck. I hate that. That could almost turn you a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Because they're unloading these human carcasses unbeknownst to them. And that's going to be in the food supply now.
It is, yeah. And
Do you think that must have happened in real life at some point?
I think it probably has happened. But what's interesting is the director was not a fan of this scene at all.
No, he wasn't a fan of because when there's a woman shown scrubbing the back of
Yeah, and she's got a
Quid's
she's got
trailer.
a cleaning bucket in the trailer.
and there's a wire that drops down.
Guitar string, I believe.
Must be. And she tugs it, and a head falls into her cleaning bucket.
Obviously a mannequin. It's gone green as well, isn't it?
No, he was not a fan of that, was he? That was kind of on the insistence of the producers.
No, he called it tasteless. The reason is the the producers, anyway, distributors, wanted it to end on a more shocking note, which I can kind of understand.
I actually don't mind that ending.
I don't mind it too much. I was pretty taken aback by it. When I seen that string hanging down, I thought, because obviously it's planted that the truck was overweight, so there's got to be something else in it. But
And that cuts to the credits.
and that's it. That's the credits.
Do you think they ended up together? I wondered.
I think it's like very ambiguous. It's suggested that because he said he's going to go up north to find work.
Yeah.
It's suggested they'll go along together. Maybe.
Do you think it works? Do you think the age is a barrier? Or them two poetry-loving sons of bitches
Possibly.
could make it work?
Do you think it's going to get to a situation where she's just going to like
Take off again.
go to stage? Probably. Maybe it's in her nature just to be a hitcher.
Do you have a preference where you would have liked this film to end? Or do you like the head bucket scene?
I don't mind the head bucket scene. I felt it was a bit cheap, when they get in the.
Do you mean because it was so intricately built, this whole film, and it was never salacious, it was never over the top? What do you think that kind of messed a little with the tone?
You mean it was a kind of unnecessary gotcha moment?
It was a very restrained film, in a sense.
Yeah, I don't mind the ending too much. The bit that I thought was kind of cheesy is when it cuts to when the knife goes chung, chung, like that, and it cuts the meat up like a oh my god sudden killer kind of thing. But I don't mind the ending too much. I would have been happy it ended either way, to be honest.
No, I like the end as well. I can see Richard Franklin's kind of
He called it tasteless.
his tussle with it, but I mean, you don't always have to be tasteful, do you?
No, it's a fun little punctuation at the
It's
end
a little
of the film.
punctuation for a rather tasteful thriller.
Yeah, at the end of a very, very entertaining Ozploitation film.
I loved this film. Wayne.
This film was great. I really enjoyed this
And
film.
it completely subverts your preconceived notions. The humor in it, all these things. Do you think it makes it greater? Did you like the? Did you think the humanized Quid, and you feel more for him?
Yeah, well, the writing humanized Quid. It made him a very human character. The humor worked great because it felt like it was in line with his personality. It wasn't laugh out loud funny or anything, but
No, it's not supposed to.
There's a lot of moments where I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Everett DeRoche knocked it out of the park on this script, didn't he?
Yeah, this was a fantastic script. Like you said, you could have done this. You could have done this word for word anywhere. Like
Yeah,
in
that was
another film.
Tarantino's point. If you were to remake this film now, you could use the script word for word,
Yeah.
and it would still be brilliant.
It doesn't
and
feel
hold up.
it doesn't feel superfluous. Things are connected. Seeds are planted, which come back later on. There's not a lot of like throwaway lines or anything. It develops character. It's creates a lot of suspense. The film knows when not to have dialogue. It's just very, very well made.
I have no idea how this film isn't more recognised.
I
I
don't-
understand with genre fans it is, but I mean in a wider perception.
I don't know. Was it just because it was coming in? Was this the year 81? Was that when Mad Max 2 came out?
81 or 2.
Because when
wasn't
you
it? It
think
was
of
one them.
when you think of the high profile Ozploitation, Mad Max is usually at the top of the list. I love Mad Max, but this film, yeah, it's so annoying that this doesn't get the love that it deserves.
I can understand how this hasn't become canonical, how it's not talked about as one of the top thrillers.
No.
It is a top thriller. This is first-rate stuff.
It's fantastic. I was thoroughly enjoyed watching this film.
It genuinely feels like if Hitchcock was a young man in 1981, he would
Yeah.
make something like that.
Yeah, made perfectly, like I say, in the shadow of Hitchcock. Obviously, this director,
Rear Window, yeah.
Richard Franklin, has learned from it, taken one of my favorite Hitchcock film, and then put it on wheels, and just done such a great job with it.
And it sets it up perfectly for Richard Franklin. I wonder if it was on the back of this film he got the opportunity to do Psycho 2.
I think.
Have you ever saw Psycho 2?
I've not seen Psycho.
It is.
2.
It's good.
It's actually quite good.
It's
Is it?
good. Obviously, look, it's not Psycho 1,
No, nothing is.
but it is a really good, competent thriller.
I'm glad it is. Another thing we were talking about subversion before is the final girl trope. A lot of folk were saying Quid is now in the place of the final girl trope, because some of the characteristics of final girl is they're the most developed character, they have the most focus, they're intelligent, and they're very aware of what's going on. Also, they tend to be sexually inactive.
Ooh. So is he the final middle-aged man?
Like, yeah, he's the villain's one. Because remember in Scream when when Cindy has sex with Billy, and they're like, "Well, you had sex. That's against the
in
rules.
Scream, yeah.
Now you have to die." Yeah, but it's like he's positioned. He's in this part, and it's a counterpart to the killer as well, because the killer is also sexually inactive, but he puts his energy into the murders. For Quid, it's more he's a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, it's quite a chaste film, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Because even when when Hitch is in the car talking to him about, do you think you make loves to them, he just kind of deflects it. It's
Yeah.
like he doesn't really want to talk about it.
This guy's maybe been alone too long.
I think he has. Well, he's been on the road a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got his dingo.
I suppose. Dog. His
Yeah.
dog, yeah. But for me, this movie is a definite recommend. I really enjoyed this. I would go and watch this movie again tomorrow.
Oh, I love it as well. It's rewatchable. I've saw it twice now, and it doesn't diminish with each watch.
It's not.
You're not necessarily getting more, which you are. You're getting bits more, but it's just a thrillingly entertaining ride, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always moving. The pace is moving forward constantly.
Yeah. And if you don't know who Stacy Keach is, you will know who he is after this, and you will appreciate him.
Find it and watch it.
You've been listening to episode 9 of In Film We Trust. Once again, I'm Wayne.
I'm Liam.
Join us next week where we'll discuss, dissect, and deep dive all things film, from the obscure to the mainstream.